Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about one of the biggest video game releases of this year, a game that just came out a few weeks ago but has been mired in controversy and problems. I'm of course talking about Cyberpunk 2077. This long anticipated, much awaited video game has been teased for nearly 7 years now. That's right, a trailer came out around 2013, and every year we've been getting little bits of information and stuff coming out about it leading up to its release this year. Now, this year didn't go smoothly. It had a couple of delays. It was originally going to come out a couple of months ago. It got delayed to November and then eventually December. And now that it's out, a lot of people are actually thinking it probably should have been delayed again. It probably wasn't ready to be coming out. But as things go with these big projects, as they get close and as we get close to Christmas, people tend to try to push them out ahead of Christmas season so they could get more sales and get more people to buy them. But that appears to be backfiring on CD Projekt Red, which is the company that makes Cyberpunk, and it's backfiring on them immensely. This whole issue has become very, very obvious. As many of you have probably already heard, the game has been doing very poorly on consoles. Now, it's not a total wash. The PC gamers, the ones running them on their computers, their personal computers at home, those appear to be pretty okay. I mean, there's still issues there. There's still problems. I've been playing the game myself on a computer and had only minor graphical errors, not any big game-breaking bugs or glitches or anything yet. But the console players, the people playing on Xbox and PlayStation, they're the ones that are getting the worst of these issues. Apparently, the game was not ready to run well on these last-gen consoles. Now, keep in mind, this game is only out on the last gen, so unless you have a PC, you're likely playing it on a PlayStation 4 version or an Xbox One version. So that's the previous consoles. As many of you know, the new ones just came out about a month ago. There's a new Xbox, a new PlayStation, but Cyberpunk isn't technically on those yet. You could play on those systems, but it's still going to be the old version of the game. They're still waiting to come out with updated versions for those. And the problem there is it just seems like this game was too complicated. It was too much graphically intensive. They were very ambitious with Cyberpunk, with a lot of the graphics, a lot of the details, the scanning, the hacking, the radar. It has things like ray tracing and DLSS features and stuff like that that are really next gen kind of things that even an older graphics card on your computer might not be able to handle. I have a pretty good graphics card, like a medium level one, but it's a couple years old now and I'm not getting the new features. But fortunately on PC, you can still take down a lot of the features and the quality and get it to run on whichever graphics card you have to a certain point. But with the consoles, it's having a lot more issues, and that's why we're at where we are today. What's happened recently, which we're about to go over, is you can see from this article, Cyberpunk is offering refunds. They're doing lots of things to try to change this up and to correct their errors, and they're getting a lot of pushback because of the problems. Now, these fixes are coming in a little bit too late. I think a lot of people are upset, and essentially Cyberpunk is playing damage control. They're offering people refunds, and another part of the story that we haven't got to is they actually had to remove the game from the PlayStation Store, so you can't even digitally buy Cyberpunk on PlayStation anymore. It had that many problems that PlayStation took it off the store and said, hey, we can't sell this product. We can't put this out there. We can't, with good conscience, let people pay the full $60 for this game that hardly even runs. So they took it off the store. They're giving everyone refunds. That's another big deal. Both of these are big deals for Sony because, for one, they don't typically remove games this quick in this kind of error. I mean, they probably should have tested this and not had it release. So that's a problem. And then the other thing is Sony and the PlayStation platform, they're pretty well known to not be very good about giving refunds. Like typically if you buy a digital game, you're pretty much stuck with it. They have a strict rule where if you play more than 2 hours of a game, you can't get a refund, which is pretty ridiculous. I mean, you can't really get much into a game after 2 hours. Like it's just basically a lot of intros and selecting your character and stuff. And it's just a strange system. And a lot of people are upset about the way that runs. But that's just highlighting how bad this Cyberpunk thing is, because now they are openly giving refunds to anyone who got the game, anyone who got Cyberpunk. You can return it to a store as well if you got the disc version. They're offering all these refunds because they know it's messed up. And essentially, Cyberpunk is admitting that they weren't ready. The game was not ready. The game was basically a beta. It was in test mode. They're just trying to push it out ahead of Christmas and figured they'd patch it up later. This is a typical problem with recent video game releases. This has been happening for a long time now in the new generation generation of kind of games as a service in these kinds of worlds where you can update games on the fly. It has to be kind of a different system, because back in the day, you had to send out your game and it had to be ready. Like, you couldn't send out a patch when you're playing on Nintendo 64. There was no internet connected to it at all. Obviously, there wouldn't be able to be that kind of data flow on a Wi-Fi or anything. There wasn't even Wi-Fi a lot in the 90s like that. So nowadays, we're in a new world where games can come out unfinished, and they kind of lean into this idea that they can patch it, that everyone on a video game console has internet. You have to get like day one patches a lot of times, which is just basically what they call it when you get a game and it has to be updated before you could even play it. So you can't play it out of the box a lot of these times. Now, that depends on the game, but this has been happening, especially with a lot of these open world, big world RPG titles. This kind of harps back to a similar situation with Fallout 76 was a kind of game that came out a couple years ago and had a lot of errors at the beginning, had to be constantly updated to make it even playable. That was a little bit different too, because that was an online game, but it did have a similar kind of feel to it, and that's what we're going with this Cyberpunk stuff. And that's why the disappointed players can ask for a refund, as this article says. There you can see a picture of the Keanu character that's in Cyberpunk. He ends up playing a pretty big role in the story mode. No spoilers here today, but I have gotten through a bit of the story. I'm not sure how far in the game I am, but I would definitely say I made it through like the first 25% of the game. I'm not really sure. It could be more than that. Certainly not far along with all the side quests and side missions. There's a lot to do in the game besides the main plot, but I've gotten through to a point where I've leveled up. I've met the Keanu character. I've figured out what the sort of mission is. I'm still solving like a mystery there, but it's pretty cool. I'm going to say, like, to be honest, I played the game. I'm enjoying it still. It has some merit, especially if you're on the PC. If you don't have a PC, if you're not playing on that, I wouldn't recommend the game. Obviously, the PlayStation and Xbox versions are super messed up right now. You're going to need to wait on those platforms, as we've seen time and time again with all this issues in this story. So let's read into this first apology. It says, Cyberpunk developer CD Projekt has acknowledged the performance issues plaguing the game on base last-gen consoles and has apologized for not showing the game running on the original PS4 and Xbox One prior to its release. We should have paid more attention to making it play better on PlayStation and Xbox, said the notice published on Twitter. The developer said it is hoping to fix the most prominent problems with a series of patches to be released over the coming months, but added that anyone who doesn't want it will be able to return their copy of the game. So here's where they first offered refunds. This article is actually a little earlier on, before PlayStation took it off the store and other steps in the story. And we're going to get to another later step of the story. We've got a Times article we're going to read. But what I want to note here is the deception. This is something that actually makes it a lot worse. This wasn't like an honest mistake. A lot of people are thinking it was even more nefarious than they lead on, because as this article and this apology is saying, they didn't show people how it looked on the PlayStation or Xbox. They did a lot of kind of smoke and mirrors, showing people PC footage on really big, expensive rigs that can run it at 1,000,000 frames a second and just totally knock it out. They've showed pre-rendered videos, but they didn't really show people how a PlayStation video or an Xbox playthrough might look. And had they might have shown people how bad it was, or shown people how they might not want to play it in this beta phase. So that was one of the big problems, and that's what makes the story even worse, is that Cyberpunk is trying to make it right now, but it's a little too late. They certainly seem to have deceived people and kind of had some bad business practices. This is why they're actually getting sued now. Another part of the story is there's a lawsuit or two pending. They might be getting sued from like a Better Business Bureau kind of angle, where they're false advertising. This is like showing one thing and delivering another. It's like saying, hey, this is our product we're going to sell you. Here's a picture of it. And then you come home and it's this other thing that looks way, way worse. And that's why a lot of people are upset. And that's why this story just keeps growing and growing. As I mentioned earlier, it got kicked off of the PlayStation Store, and now people are talking about this lawsuit. As this article says, we're on New York Times now. This article says, Cyberpunk was supposed to be the biggest video game of the year. What happened? What happened indeed? I do think time will tell. I think it's still a little early. And as a lot of people have said before too, there's been a lot of other games with errors and bugs and issues that turned out to be really awesome after some updates. So initially there is a backlash. There is a bad taste in your mouth. You see this product coming out early, but at least we're past the point. We're released, and now they're going to update and fix it up. And I know it seems like a long time, but say a year from now, this game is going to get updates, maybe even an expansion or two, add some new features features, like they deleted a lot of features they promised. That was another issue. They talked about other features in the game, features people wanted, like being able to change your character's look, being able to update your apartment and your features in your apartment, like get a new location, buy locations throughout the city, stuff like that might be implemented later, which is something that's been done on many other games. So in the future, potentially we have a very cool game, but right now it's not there. It's probably like, say, 50% capacity of what it should be to be a great, amazing premise. And we'll just have to see how time plays out. But right now I can see why people are upset. It's certainly messed up what the company has pulled here with some deceptive practices, but it's also in the name of a cool game that I'm enjoying. I think it does have some potential. So I'm playing the both sides here. I'm kind of hoping for the best. My main thing is, like, I like these kinds of games a lot. I liked, like, again, I compare it to a Fallout. Like, it reminds me of when Fallout 4 came out about 5 years ago. That was an epic release that kind of changed a lot of things in gaming culture. And I think Cyberpunk has a lot of potential for that too. Their previous release also came out in 2015. Now that I remember it, Witcher 3 was like the big groundbreaking game for them that year. And I just hope that's what comes of Cyberpunk over some time, but it definitely is messed up what we've seen so far. So with that said, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Subscribe if you're new. Tell me if you've bought Cyberpunk, if you're going to play. Special thanks to that amazing fan who got me a copy of the game. I really appreciate that. And until next time, you guys have a good one.